to the fourth of our lockdown videos, and the third one with a guest, and we're delighted to say that we're joined by Anders in Stockholm today. And
yes, brilliant, lovely to have Anders.
Great to have him here. I met Anders in the flesh about 5 years ago, I think, in London, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, we met twice. Yeah,
twice. That's right. We did. That's right. And had a beer and stuff. So it's great to see him, and of course, great to see Mark as well. Don't see Mark in the flesh anymore either. Actually, we're still all locked down here, and the format's slightly different because obviously we're not playing records to each other while we're in real time. So we don't know. We've all picked 7 records to have a look at, and but there might not be a thread between them. So this could be a bit random. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to start off with, sadly, somebody else who's passed away in the last couple of weeks, who's Hamilton Hammond, the American funk drummer and also band leader. And this is from, I think, his 4th or 5th record, which came out in 1977. Completely original music. I mean, it's great actually revisiting his stuff. It just sounds like nobody else, really. I mean, there's a track on here which is called "Got to Stay Funky," and David Toop, the writer, did a obituary for him and just said this music doesn't sound like anything else. If you didn't know it was meant to be a soul record or a funk record, you wouldn't know what it was. You could think it's kind of some cosmic music from Germany or some Afrobeat. You just wouldn't know what it was at all. Amazing rhythm guitar playing on here from Wawa Watson and also Ray Parker Jr. I mean, it's beyond chicken scratch. It almost sounds like kind of they're going through a metal grinder or something like that. Absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, Bohannon made records right up to kind of mid-80s, then went quiet for a bit and then started making them again later on. So definitely recommended.
Oh, nice. Okay, my turn. But first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It is, when you text me, when you send me the email, and I start thinking about it, it would be really fun, and I really enjoy your videos. So, yeah.
Well, it's so nice, Anders, to take this opportunity to bring out some of the original VC members out of retirement. And, you know, you've always been somebody who shows really interesting records and also has such a deep passion. And for anyone who doesn't know, Anders is a fantastic guitar player too. So he's a musician and a vinyl collector. But it's nice to get that combination.
Okay, thank you very much.
Actually, your daughter's quite a good guitar player as well. Real YouTube clip.
She managed to hit some overtones there.
Yeah, I know. She definitely had a Thurston Moore kind of posture as well.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make a shout out to Fred, Big Star 1000. He made, I watched his first video when he's showing British jazz, UK jazz, and I started to listen to my UK jazz collection. So, yeah, I just picked one, I think, of those. And this is a favorite. Howard Riley, The Day Will Come. It's a 3 record from, is it 69? No, recorded March and April 1970 with Barry Guy and Alan Jackson. I think this is really interesting and a great listen. You know, it's lots of moody, slow tempo, dark compositions. Not so much like showing off, just creating a mood that's interesting and that brings you in, like, as a listener, and built up around the piano and the sounds, you know, maybe like a ostinato or like a bass line that goes round and round. It's like really, really interesting approach to composition and to work with a piano trio, I think. So it's really good. I have another one also. I think he made 2 on CBS.
Yeah, pretty rare, those 2 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was kind of more, it's unusual was he was more influenced by Bill Evans than he was by Cecil Taylor. A lot of people were playing like Cecil Taylor at the time, and he was much more, as you say, much more kind of slower kind of moods, legato kind of sounds and so forth. So he's a great player, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like he was listening to like Russian composers and Bill Evans or something like that, you know? Yeah. I don't know.
Nice. I don't know that record. I guess, yeah, if we can find a thread between our records, we will. If we can't, it doesn't matter because we don't know what each of us has bought. But I guess the thread for me would be a UK jazz connection. So this is an album that's just come out. This is a brand new record on Blue Note. It's Youssef Days and Tom Misch. So Youssef Days is a drummer. He was with Youssef Kamal, who I think for me released the best of the kind of new UK jazz scene albums a couple of years ago. Before that, he was in a band called United Vibrations, who had kind of quite an Afrobeat feel. And this is a collaboration with Tom Misch, who is a guitarist and a singer. And I guess it's not strictly jazz, but it's very much infused by the spirit of jazz. And it's also very funky. It's also really nice sounding, like good use of electronics. Lots of moods, funky moods and grooves. And for me, yeah, a good album in the new UK genre. Many of which I'm not that keen on, but I think this is great. He's a great drummer. And yeah, highly recommended. Lovely pressing, double album, Blue Note.
Keeping with the UK end, have I shown this before, Mark? I don't think I have I?
No.
Okay. This was something I've been listening to quite a lot recently. This is from the late 70s. This is a UK composer and arranger called Neil Ardley, who was there was a bunch of people around the same time, people like Michael Gibbs and others as well. And this is a record which features John Martin as the main performer on it.
Really?
Guitar on it. And the core of the band is built around Nucleus, so it's Ian Carr and people like that in the band. And great production, great sound, and it's almost like a kind of weird, kind of John Martin. No singing from John Martin, just guitar playing on it as well. And it's got a great sound. This record really does not sound like it's recorded in the 70s at all. And I think I noticed a recent review of it. Somebody said, this is, somebody should sample this. It's a drum sound on here. It's fantastic, actually. So it's very kind of pastoral kind of sounding, very kind of, I have to say, very English sounding record, actually. So from late 70s on Decca Records.
Wow.
And interesting, quite easy to find, quite easy to pick up. But I was looking for it for years, actually, and I had the wrong title, so I was always looking for the wrong record. And John Martin sounds great on it as well, really suits his kind of playing.
How's the production? Is it like a large band, or is it like a rock?
It's like a 12-piece. There's a lot of synth playing, a lot of ARP and mini moog on it as well. There's two keyboard players, John Martin, bass guitar, drums, flute, Tony Coe, who's a great player on clarinet and soprano, Ian Carr on trumpet, and Norma Winston and Pepe Lima on vocals. So it's a kind of middle-sized kind of ensemble.
Oh.
Interesting records, definitely worth a listen to.
Nice. Okay, the next one, I think you maybe showed this one in one of your videos. I played the first track, Exodus, from this one, Jimmy Scott, The Source, from I think 1970. Yeah, that's just a lovely track. Jimmy Scott, American, I think, man. He didn't reach like puberty or something, so he's have like a alto voice. So it's not this person.
That's not him.
And his singing is like out of this world on this track, I think. And it's a nice production with strings and without being cheesy at all. It's just perfect for me. And the track is very, very takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
Really. And it's one of my favorite tracks, like top 100 favorite tracks, I think. And each time I play it, I just like sit down and enjoy and do nothing else and just listen to that track because it's fantastic. So it's highly recommended. The rest of the record, I think, is okay. But yeah. So usually I listen to one or two tracks. I never don't play it from start to finish. But yeah.
Nice.
Got a wonderful voice. I saw him live once, and a very, very small venue. And his voice, kind of totally transporting, really kind of otherworld. And his one of his songs was used in the first series of Twin Peaks as well, which kind of go that kind of sound. But yeah, he's great. A lot he's influenced a lot of women singers actually, because his voice, as you say, is in that alto range rather than. But yeah, great vocalist actually.
And he were in some ending scenes in Twin Peaks in this red room in the. I think he also were in one episode like singing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But great, really good singing.
I've got that album on my wants list on Discogs, and I couldn't remember where I'd heard about it. So had you played it at a session, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also one of the other ones is the one with him sitting in front of the fire with not him actually, but there's a guy sitting in front of the fire looking at album sleeves as well. That's the other one I played long time ago.
Yeah, I have that one. That's good with standards.
Yeah, that's I think almost his best record, that one actually. For the whole record, I think it's a really good track song.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, you know, how we're feeling during this time. I mean, back in the UK, we've been very seriously locked down for for me, it's coming up to 8 weeks, and you go through different moods of the kind of music that you need to kind of keep you going. And I guess, like right now, the weather is incredible. We're probably having the best spring, you know, that I can actually ever remember. And I've been enjoying music that's kind of lifting my spirits a bit. So this is a terrible cover, but this is Candido, who was a bongo and conga percussionist. This is on the South Soul label, and this came out in 1979. There's only 4 tracks on the album, so it's basically like an album of you know, 2 12-inches really. And the track that everybody knows is called Jingo, which has this fantastic percussive breakdown. But there's also a fantastic tune called Thousand Finger Man, which I've been really enjoying. And there's also Dancing and Prancing, and then another one called Rock and Shuffle. But it's kind of classic disco suffused with Latin rhythm. And it sounds great. So I've been digging a bit of Candido on the South Soul label.
I think to remember Thousand Finger Man was a bit of a rare groove track, wasn't it? Actually, I think to remember.
Yeah.
Cool. Is it me?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. We've lost Tony Allen in the last couple of weeks as well. Fantastic drummer. And I've shown this before, I think, on the session, but this is just this is the original version of Sorrow, Tears and Blood with a whole section that was cut out of the other release version, put back in as well. So you get another trumpet solo on it as well. And this is like a double. This is the 45 that came out on Knitting Factory Records, and it's got a great track called Perambulator on the other side, which has never been released recently on vinyl at all. So it's just a great. I mean, anything really with Tony Allen on is really, really good. But I think he's particularly good on Sorrow, Tears and Blood. Actually, it's got a real. Anyway, this was a record store day thing in the first year I think they ever did record store day. I think actually. But yeah, definitely worth it. And we miss him, I think.
We really do.
Nice. And this will be almost like some kind of thread between our picks here. This is a Analog Africa compilation called African Scream Contest with music, the raw and psychedelic Afro sounds from Benin and Togo 70s. So I think the pictures are on the gatefold here and some information, but I have a favorite track here with the Orchestre Polyrhythmo de Cotonou, and I think that's the track, if it's possible to see.
Not quite, can't quite get there.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can put a link. Sorry, maybe we can put a link.
Yeah, definitely.
I think when I have like friends over that's drummers, I always play that track, and there's some strange funky beat that I haven't heard before, and it's one of my favorite like drum tracks. It's really, really good.
It's a great label, I think, and they just do some really nice stuff. But kind of almost scared to buy them. It's like kind of addictive, I think. Actually, you can imagine buying just hundreds of this.
Yeah, I think I have 4 or something, but I agree.
Well, here is another Tony Allen record. This is his last release that only came out about a month ago, I think. And this was a collaboration with Hugh Masekela, who also sadly died a few years ago. and yeah, I think they had great mutual respect for each other, and in their own way were sort of hugely influential. And yeah, somehow the recording got sort of further developed. There's some UK musicians actually featured on this, including Steve Williamson and Joe Armon-Jones. The recording is really, really nice. I mean, you can kind of hear that Hugh Masekela's coming to the end of his time. Maybe he's not playing the best I've ever heard him, but there's a lot of feeling in what he's doing. But the recording of Tony Allen's drumming is sensational on here. And yeah, I mean, he really, there's been so many accolades for Tony Allen. Lots of people really recognizing what an incredible, influential drummer he was. He brought something to the drum kit that just wasn't there before. And there's this amazing kind of polyrhythmic chatter that happens, like everything's talking to everything else. And I was having a really interesting chat with a good friend of mine who's a drummer, who in fact, I never knew this, but he actually toured with Hugh Masekela when he was only 19, which is incredible, which is Robbie. But he was sort of saying, the couple of times he saw Tony Allen, he just knew he was in the presence of a master musician, because he was so relaxed yet so powerful at the same time. So this is on World Circuit, and it's called Rejoice. And
a lot of people would say that when you hear Tony Allen, it sounds like what he's playing is quite simple. Then if you try and play it, you can't play it. It's almost impossible. It's almost like he had 18 hands or something. That's what he was doing. Moving into a slightly different zone, this is a record that shown again shown before, been playing a lot the last couple of weeks, which is the guitarist Michael Gregory Jackson.
Oh, yes, lovely. Yeah.
Album called Heart and Center. Do you know his playing, Anders?
A little bit. I have one record. I think it's cool, and I've heard that. I think you said maybe that Bill Frisell is really influenced by his stuff also.
And just incredibly underrated musician, actually. I mean, he's been championed by people like Bill Frisell, who's been writing on his website. So, but most people, I think his name hasn't helped. Actually, to be quite honest, because when he first started, he was just called Michael Jackson. So there was a bit of a confusion around, really. But just as a great album, this has got people like Oliver Lake and by Keita Carroll and so forth. But it's actually quite almost. Some of the tracks are almost kind of got a kind of funk thing going on as well. Actually, it's a really nice record. He made 2 on Gramavision and 1 on his own label as well. But yeah, he's just incredibly underrated and a really nice player. I think very hard to describe. Got his own style. Doesn't sound like anybody else at all. Actually, got no.
But also beautiful singing voice.
Beautiful singing voice.
Yeah, I think it's good. Really.
Yeah.
Really good. Okay, I continue with a jazz record here. Transfiguration with Rolf and Joachim Kühn. So with Carl Hansberger as a guest. So it's piano, reeds, and vibraphone, and you have Aldo Romano on drums and Bob Guerin maybe on bass. So it's like a mix between two. I think the rhythm section is Italian and the other guys are German. So this is from early '67, free jazz. It's hard. I think it's a little bit hard to describe without for me right now, without name dropping. Let's say that you've been listening to Out to Lunch, Eric Dolphy, Point of Departure, Andrew Hill, a little bit of early Cecil Taylor, and some maybe even contemporary classical music from that time. And this is what they come up with that is highly original, I think, not just copying the Americans. Really, really nice. One of my favorite European jazz, free jazz records from this time.
Is that on MPS?
Yeah. First on Saba and then MPS,
Yeah, nice. He's great. He made I think he made a record with Dave Douglas as well, a duo record, which is really nice as well. They're both great players. I think both the brothers. I think definitely.
Nice.
That one is pretty good.
Nice references there, Andrew Hill and Eric Dolphy. And well, I'm going to show something that again I've been selling a few records on Discogs, and that's enabled me to buy a few new records. Now, this isn't that new, but it's on the International Anthem record label, which seems to be really kind of doing some interesting releases, but in terms of new kind of hybrids of where jazz might be heading. And this is Jeff Parker, who's the guitar player with Tortoise. And this is an album called The New Breed. And it's really hard to describe what this sounds like. It just sounds really fresh. It's really original. It's got some really lovely playing, but it's kind of quite weird and kind of quite out there at moments. But there's also kind of grooves there. And it's just interesting. It just doesn't actually sound like anybody else, which is always a good sign, I think. And I sort of found it because I follow Michelle Ndegecello on Instagram. And I think the bass player, Paul Bryan, has played with Michelle because she quite often has a second bass player when she tours. And she was just talking about how hard it is to be her second bass player, but she was recommending this. And yeah, I've only got it last week, but it's a really nice album.
I got his new one on CD.
Oh, really?
I think the vinyl's just arrived, actually. I think that was what came through the door just now, actually. And it's got the same kind of similar kind of vibe, but it is very odd music.
Yeah, it's odd music, yeah.
And it's almost got a kind of strange kind of ambient thing going on with it. And you kind of, you're listening to it and you suddenly find yourself in a completely different place to where you think you were. Really kind of imaginative stuff, actually.
It's interesting because you can't attach these kind of genre descriptions to it, which is probably a good sign, I think.
A good sign.
Yeah. You're on, John.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. If there's two words that are going to put me off any kind of music, that's probably blues rock, probably the thing. But I have to say, I've become quite addicted to this band recently, actually, who I know are big news. And I'm sure they're not a kind of VC kind of band at all, actually. But it's great music, actually, the Dirty Trucks band. And this is from their last but one record, Let Me Get By. Really not the kind of music I listen to at all, but I actually saw a couple of YouTube clips and just really impressed by the kind of musicianship in the band, actually. I mean, they're really good players. And this came out as a double vinyl, very nice recording. Yeah, good songs, great songwriting, and some quite nice guitar playing as well.
And who's on bass?
It's got Tim LaFave on bass.
It is Tim LaFave,
yeah, who of course played with Wayne Krantz and other people. He's left the band now. Actually, he's gone back to doing more jazzy stuff. But yeah, some great bass playing on it. Really nice recording, analog recording. Yeah,
they're a bit like the Allman Brothers, I feel.
They are. Yeah. Well, Butch Trucks was Derek Trucks' uncle, and he was the drummer of the Allman Brothers. So there's a direct kind of connection to that. They do. I mean, live they do cover versions of Sly Stone stuff and all kinds of things. So they've got a much wider kind of palette than the Allman Brothers had. Yeah,
a bit Dead-like.
Yeah, a bit. They're probably a little bit tighter than the Dead, I think.
Yeah.
Actually. Yes. Everybody's tighter than the Dead. So yeah, I mean, really nice record. Listen to this a lot, actually.
Okay. Nice. Blues. Lightning Hopkins.
Ah, nice.
They're Going Away from 1963. This is those analog production versions. But actually, I had, I think it's still called the original jazz classics, those 80s pressings. It sounded great also. So you don't have to go for those pricey ones, I think. So this is just like Lightning Hopkins on guitars and vocals, of course. Leonard Gaskin on bass and Herbie Lovell maybe on drums. Fantastic recording by Rudy Van Gelder, and Lightning Hopkins original, a little bit odd guitar playing with lots of feeling. I don't know how to describe it. It's just he's just speaking to me with both his voice and his playing, I think. And I don't know if some purists think that the early stuff is what you're supposed to listen to. I like those Prestige recordings also from the 60s and the early stuff. So yeah.
What year is that, Anders? What year is it?
63. On Prestige. Yeah. Or Bluesville.
Nice. Well, I've not
A
really
few
got
of
a
them
name
around that time played. Sorry.
Go on, John.
I was going to say a few blues musicians around that time got to go into the studio and play with kind of people who are better known as jazz musicians. Because John Lee Hooker made a couple of records around that time, and Howling Wolf as well. But that's a nice one. Yeah, I've not got that on vinyl, but I got it on CD. It's a very nice record, that.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this next album, is anyone familiar with this? I'd never come across it before. It's a Brazilian album. It's from the early 70s. And again, I'm finding Instagram is like really feeding me with stuff that I need to buy. And I follow Mr. Bongo, which is a record label and shop based in Brighton in southeast England. And yeah, this album came... It's voted #1 in the top 100 Brazilian albums ever by Rolling Stones magazine. It's called Novos Baianos, and Acabu Carrare is I think the title, and it's from the early 70s, and it's just got this really joyful feeling of you know, sort of samba infused, bossa infused, slightly psychedelic flavor, different vocalists, female vocalists, male vocalists, great percussion, but a really kind of joyful sound. Again, the sort of music that I'm finding that's kind of quite helpful at the moment. So yeah, I really know very little about these guys, but it's really lovely pressing as well.
Check that one out.
Yeah.
Me again? Okay, we're getting really random here. This is something I was listening to a Freddie Hubbard record called Sweet Return a couple of weeks ago, and just started really noticing the piano player, who's Joanne Burkeen. And what a fantastic player she is. And I just didn't know anything about her really at all. And immediately wanted to find out more about her and pick this record up, which is called Ancient Dynasty, which is actually on Bob James's label, on his Tapanzi label. And it's a great band with Joe Henderson, Eddie Gomez, and Jack DeJohnette. So they're definitely not messing about with the band at all. And she's a fantastic player. I mean, again, incredibly hard to categorize, really. I mean, she's obviously got a huge technique as a player, and it's got a bit of a McCoy Tyner influence, a bit of a Cecil influence, but very much her own kind of woman. And this is a great record, actually. And I actually picked up another one by her, also on Bob James's label. And it's kind of Joe Henderson. It's in that kind of almost in that 70s Joe Henderson kind of style.
Lovely.
Really, really nice. And she's terrific, actually. And it's a great recording as well. Yeah, super. But yeah, an old one for Bob James put out on his own label, but a really nice record. I think from 1980, this one came out.
And who produced it, John?
Produced by Bob James.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Massive. Yeah, so really recommended, actually.
Yeah, I know, but I think I have that one on my, like what I look for when I go to local shops and so on. She's great, but the ugly cover art and early 80s, if you're like in the 60s, just maybe you will buy something else, but sometimes it's like, no, really? I should just buy those also because the music is great. She's awesome.
And Jack DeJohn is fantastic on that record as well. He really lets loose, actually. I mean, the kind of up-tempo numbers are absolutely storming in it.
But the songs, are they more like groovy, or is it standard?
Oh, they're all original compositions, but they're almost in a kind of, they sound a little bit McCoy Tyner-ish, a little bit, but not kind of, actually a lot of them sound like Joe Henderson compositions. Quite that kind of sound, even though they're not by him, they're by her. Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Yeah, next one is a classical record on. This is a reissue on Speaker's Corner, so it's like one of those audiophile pressing, Shostakovich. And yesterday I played the concerto for cello in E flat, and then you have, I think that's Rostropovich playing the cello, and that's Ormandy, and that's Shostakovich. So like introducing, I think, if I remember it right, introducing Rostropovich for the American audience, and it's recorded in with the Philadelphia Symphony Orchestra. And This is fantastic music. Actually, in August, I think it was, I felt a little bit, I didn't want to listen to my jazz collections. I started buying classical records and ended up buying a 3,000 3,000 records on Swedish eBay on an auction, like for just £300 or something. And I kept
3,000 records.
Yeah, it was like an auction, and photograph from like the basement. Here I have like boxes of records, and just a few pictures. And I thought, okay, so many boxes, and I won the auction, and I kept 1,000 of them, and then I gave away to friends and to charity shop. So I've been listening to lots of classical music, and then also buying some favorites on better pressings, or the fair pressings. This is fantastic. The first movement of the cello concert is a bit aggressive, like a riff or like some rhythmic idea. Really nice playing, and then the second movement is beautiful melody, almost like like for a Holocaust documentary or something like that, like really moving. I don't know, those slow, dark tempos, dark music. That's what I've been into really last couple of months. I've been listening to like Leonard Cohen's early stuff also, and that's what I'm enjoying the most right now, I think. And so this is highly recommended if you enjoy classical music.
Yeah. So it's almost like that Leonard Cohen album, So You Want It Darker. I thought it was the best album title I've ever heard. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it's great. It's also very kind of, I think Shostakovich and who I'm going to show next, and also some other stuff, that kind of stuff is very easy to get into, actually, if you've been listening to. I mean, certainly rhythmically, it's quite strong as well. So you get, it's not a huge journey from listening to jazz and some other kind of music into some of that stuff, I think.
Well, this next record, I've had it for a long time, and in fact, it was I've got it. It's an original, and it's quite a expensive record now. But I listened to Radio 3, which for our UK viewers will know is the BBC's kind of classical wing of radio broadcasting. But they do often, drop a bit of jazz in, or a bit of, more world type music. And I just heard these kind of couple of chords, and it was very familiar. But when you're actually stopped in your tracks by a piece of music, and this music was just floating, and I was just on the journey. And as the music evolved, I was remembering who it was, and it goes to this beautiful. Well, it starts so beautiful, and then it goes really dissonant and kind of twisted. And of course, I'm talking about the Peace Piece, Bill Evans, on this wonderful album. Everybody digs Bill Evans. I have to say, I'd never actually bothered to read these quotes. These are some amazing quotes of people just really saying how amazing Bill Evans was. And this is on Riverside, and this was my dad's best friend owned this record, and when he died, his daughter gave me a list of some of the records and said I could have what I liked, and this was one of the ones I picked. So it's got a lot of sort of sentimental meaning as well, but I mean, just beautiful playing. Just Bill Evans, Sam Jones, Philly Joe Jones as a trio. I think there's three original Bill Evans tracks on this, and really only his second album as a band leader, but he'd done the kind of blue sessions by this time. I think this is about 59. And just what an incredible player, real game changer, and such a humble guy. Again, reading the notes saying that he left a kind of nearly 2-year gap after his first release because he just didn't think it was good enough, and he didn't think he was good enough.
Yeah, he had zero confidence, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been listening to some of his latest, the last stuff he recorded actually before he died. Quite unusual because he got more aggressive as a player the older he got, which most people go the other way. They tend to kind of mellow out. It's interesting. There's a great compilation called Lost in the Stars, which is him going back to the Village Vanguard again. And the playing's great on it. It's much more in your face, actually, than his earlier stuff, which is kind of interesting, actually. It's great.
Yeah.
Great music.
Yeah, I have a CD box set from like the last sessions or something like that. It came out maybe 20 years ago.
That's
Where
right.
like complete concerts from. I don't remember the venue, but he plays like in really fast rounds and really intense. Yeah, so I know it's
definitely. So my last record is inspired by Anders, actually, by one of his last videos, actually, which is Bartok. This is, I think, the first classical music record I ever bought, actually. And it's Bartok's Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celeste, which you were talking about in your video.
Yeah.
And this was kind of ideal transition for somebody who was probably listening to King Crimson at the time into classical music. I mean, it sounds like it kind of, I remember listening to this and thinking, this sounds like Lark's Tongues and Aztec or something or other. It's got, I think, I mean, amazingly rhythmic, powerful music, really. And kind of, again, lots of dark colors but I mean, this is all about rhythm, really, this music. And yeah, so I could pull this out and have a listen to this again, and it still sounds great, actually. I mean, kind of, so yeah, Bartok.
Yeah.
And this is recording by Neville Mariner and the Academy of St. Martin's in the Fields. So I've got another one, actually, another recording of this as well. I think you played one, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, didn't you, I think?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I have a couple of different also. Yeah.
So
nice.
Can't go wrong with him, really.
Yeah, my last record is a Swedish rock group. I don't know. I don't know if it's been shown so much in the VC. It's the Cardigans. You know, my favorite record with them. You know about them?
Yeah.
My siblings, they love this record, saying that this is one of the best Swedish record we know of, and I agree. It's really, really good. So when the reissue came out last year, I got the vinyl. I've been listening to the CD forever, and every time they come over and like we're preparing dinner or something, and we want something in the background, some jazz classics or this one usually. So I play the CD version, like hundreds of times or something, and this is a really good Swedish rock record, good songwriting, and recommended. And shout out to Henry Derrick in Los Angeles. He posted this one a while back, and maybe on Instagram, I don't remember, or Facebook, and I commented, and I really like him, so I just want to make a shout out. So okay.
Nice. My last record is this. This is Roy Ayers and Virgin Ubiquity. This is a double album of unreleased recordings from 1976 to 1981. Came out on Barely Breaking Even. Not very much to see on the back there. A few years back, and has just been re-released alongside Volume 2 as well. And
out, is it? Great.
It's just come out again.
Yeah.
Very reasonably priced for a double album. And I mean, I have loads of Roy Ayers. There's a certain mood that he elicits from the players, and he's worked with a lot of different musicians over the years. And what's really nice about this is he's done liner notes just talking about each of the different players who's featured. And he obviously, I mean, he had certain musicians who stayed with him a long time, like Dennis Davis and Harry Whittaker, but then lots of other singers who kind of came in and out. And whoever's playing, there's always a distinctive kind of Roy Ayers vibe. He really sort of he inhabits a space somewhere between jazz, soul, and funk, like nobody else. So I've been really enjoying that.
Also, I think that all that stuff was not released at the time, and I think it sounds better than a lot of the things that.
Yes. Yeah.
Within the contractual situation with the record companies, I think.
Yeah.
Great. I think it's his chord progressions. I think actually, which he's got a certain kind of, you kind of almost know a Roy Ayers track even if you haven't heard it before, straight away, actually.
So John, we're sharing a book or a film that's been getting us through.
Yeah.
Okay.
What have you got?
I got 2 books, actually. First is this really interesting book about Pat Metheny's ECM period, which is kind of very detailed analysis of his music during that kind of time. So it covers 75 to 84. And I have to say, some of the musical analysis is a bit beyond me because I'm not a musician, but really interesting book actually about how all that stuff was recorded. Really highly recommended. They also, there's a great book in the same series about Miles's quintet as well, his quintet with Herbie and Tony Williams and so forth as well. Really interesting, nicely, not too academic, well written. And the other book is Ian Banks, really, it's a science fiction book. And I've just been restarting reading all the culture novels. And Ian Banks was a Scottish writer, sadly died a few years ago. And I think he's right up there with Kurt Vonnegut and all the great kind of science fiction writers. And the culture series just seems to be so inventive, really. Kind of interesting, politically interesting in terms of its sexual politics. Just, yeah, fascinating stuff, really. So once you start, this is the first one in the series, you won't stop, probably. You'll have, I think there's 10 or 11 to read. So.
Okay, I just got a notification that I'm almost out of battery. I forgot to put a cable in, but I think we can finish this at least. Max von Sydow died a couple of weeks ago, and then I thought, okay, what is my favorite movies with him? And I started thinking about all the Ingmar Bergman movies I watched when I was in my early 20s. I'm 41 now, and I haven't rewatched those, DVDs and so on. It's been a long time since I saw a Bergman movie. So I went down to the basement and I brought up a DVD box set. So I'm planning to watch Persona.
Right.
That one is great. And another favorite is Wild Strawberries. That one is not as strange as Persona, but also really good. So revisiting some Bergman, I think, for me.
Nice. One of the things I've been doing during this period is I've started going to an online Chinese philosophy class, and the current book we're looking at is this, which is The Doctrine of the Mean, which is kind of it's kind of from the Confucius sort of school of thinking. I mean, Confucius is in theory the author, but it seems that it's more his kind of type of thinking which underpins a lot of the ideas in here. And it's just quite an interesting, well, it's a fascinating book, a lot of layers to explore, but it's essentially about, following a path which is kind of in the middle, and it's all about balance. And it's just really made me reflect how unbalanced we sort of seem to feel at the moment, and how much kind of extremeness there's been going on, and actually a return to almost the sweet spot of the middle might be rather a good idea. So that's what I've been exploring recently.
Great stuff. Just got one more. Also very sadly yesterday, I don't know if you heard this, Mark, but Ty, the rapper, died.
Yeah.
Who's and he was kind of somebody around on the London scene. I think it's hit people very hard. I think he was only 47, and too late really to play any tribute today to him, but just say that's very sad news. I'm trying to do something next time for him.
Well, thank you so much, Anders. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
John and I are thinking of actually doing this every week. Well, we're locked down.
Yeah, well, not.
But I mean, Anders, I hope you're going to make some more videos.
Yeah, I'm planning to do a top 10 or like give me 10 UK jazz.
Great.
Within a couple of weeks. I hope so.
Great. I'm going to stop the video and see everybody later, but